Yay, quick handheld video because I didn't have time to build it to scale or to paint it, but mainly because I'm just kind of a little too excited to actually pull my tripod out. Basically, I'm on the bench at night, just goofing around, beginning of summertime, right? Buddy of mine just gave me this vintage car radio. I don't know what year it's from. I'm gonna say around about early 90's, because it's after the era of having two chips on the inside for the amplifier, two stereo chips. We do have a quad channel back there. Well, I think it's a quad channel. I never actually read the pinout because it's only got a 9-pin harness. Actually, is it bridged or is it single-ended? Okay, I figured it out. This is a single-ended output, but it is a quad channel chip. You see, if we look here, we have left front, left rear, blue and brown. Brown with stripe, left front, and left rear negative. The same thing here. Right front, right rear, green, white. White with stripe, right front, and right rear negative. I'm a little off. I wasn't looking at the camera. I was looking at my label. So yeah, common ground for our left and right. Yeah, left and right shares common ground. So it's a single-ended output. Basically, I powered it up to my supply. Well, I got this plug, right? I've seen this plug before, but I can't think what uses it. I tried to get some of these things and poke it in it, but they were too small because this is the old school harness where it's pretty much those big old quick connect spade things. So I figure I doubt it's ever going into service, and I could fix it. I cut the wires off. Now the wires I cut are red, pink, black. We have 12 volt plus, clock, lead, and ground. I don't know what the clock is. That sounds like the clock would be memory, but is that remote? Or is that the constant that the power amp draws from? I don't know. So I tied them together in ground, powered it up, unit was dead. So I thought I'd tear it down. And I believe I found my issue very quickly. Down in this cavity where all these connectors were removed was this board, which has our big harness on it, which just breaks off into smaller plugs. Basically, if we look here in the back to our ground, it's broke. I'm just going to resolder that, and this thing may actually work. You can see there's our chip. That digital zoom goes fast. Yeah, it's just a single chip. There's no other chips hiding back here. At least not that I know of. Might be a voltage regulation chip somewhere. But yeah, it's vintage. I figured it'd be fun just to get it working. It doesn't look very nice, but it is reattached. I got the board back in, and I now have ground continuity from the chassis to there. So I got my power supply set to like 12.5 volts. And we're just going to turn it on and see if it goes up in smoke. It doesn't. So let's kill the light and see if our display comes on. No, but it is doing something, because when I, this big linear supply, when I turn it on, I hear the transformer start buzzing. You're not going to believe it. It's actually on. It's weak. This is 97.7, a channel we have. I don't know if that's a weak signal or if it's horribly clipping. When I looked at the diagram, I got it wired up to the right speaker. It's like, I think it's left front or something like that. Yeah, might need a better antenna. I just shoved a wire in the end of it. That's all the way up. It's this outer knob. Probably our tone. It is. I know. I'll pull up my old FM transmitter. That should work pretty good. Yeah, there's clearly something horribly wrong with this thing because I have an antenna clipped right to the point on the board where the external antenna goes into. Volume is at the max. And this is a very strong station. Matter of fact, if you look out the window, never mind the bird dung, right there, that flashing red light. Yeah, that's the transmitter tower for this station. I'm right inside of it. Very strong station. As you hear, I have it all the way up. This is all we're getting. And it's heavily distorted. So I'm not sure what the issue is. Is it amplifier? Is it before it? suppose I could maybe poke the input pins of that chip, but I, of course, have no idea what it is, and you gotta pretty much gut the radio because it's got a clamp on the front of it. Because why would it not have a clamp on the front of it? Well, looks like I'm committed to this project now. Let's get it apart. Well, I'm not sure if my issue is going to be underneath the tape deck, but I flipped it over and the amplifier chip is riddled with horrible solder joints. Almost half of them are broken. Pretty bare bones under here. Well, not really an awful lot to do. So I check out that quad gang potentiometer. I just shot some contact cleaner in them. Now I'm trying to clean the buttons on the faceplate up, just so they don't have big dusty things sticking out the front of that, which I still have to clean somehow. Then I'll probably take tape deck back in and touch up them solder joints on the amplifier IC. Don't know how well I can handheld this, but these solder joints are properly broken. I can just wiggle each one of them, just about each one of them. This one here in the end is the worst. But you can see each and every one of them. That one's off too. Yeah, they've all got rings around them. Pretty. Look at that. Oh, and those real nice ground lugs that soldered to the chassis. Yeah, it was broke too. So I blobbed a bunch of solder on it with my iron cranked all the way to maximum. And I don't think it's a very good connection, but it's on there, so I'm not going to touch it. It works. I switched my speaker connector. I was running it from the left front. So my guess is that channel in the amplifier is simply no good. So I guess I could quickly test the other two channels and see if the rest of them work. So I guess this thing does work. I'm tempted to stick a tape in it and see if it plays, but I don't have any tapes that I can get eaten. The belts seem good. I was under them. They're a little loose though, but I don't know. So I guess that amplifier channel's no good. Cool. So it appears to work fine, and that transmitter puts out a lot less noise when I put it down to 87 instead of 105. But what I've found is I played with all the speakers, and my left side are completely dead. I don't know if both channels in the amplifier are blown on the left side, or if there's an issue somewhere else in this thing. But both my rights work. Now, this means that, well, I can test the fader. The fader does work from front and rear, but it also means I have no stereo separation, since I only have both the right speakers. But I'm sitting here running it at pretty much full power for probably a half hour now. It doesn't have a lot of power, you know, the old school single-ended amplifiers on chips, right? We maybe got like maybe 10 watts. It doesn't even sound like that. It's probably about 8 or 9. It might be 10. It's, well, the face, which is in the other room as I cleaned it, says high power. But this has got that distinct smell of like vintage dust when it gets hot. Because this chip isn't too hot, like I can still put my fingers on it. But it's just got that signature smell of old electronics. I don't really know how else to describe it. If you smelt the smell, then you know what I'm talking about. And it's now a few days later. I got busy with some other things, and I'm determined to find what this chip is. That plate on the front of it is not like they usually are, where they're molded from the back heatsink and bent over. Chrysler head unit. But it actually just screws right in. So I'm going to take the screws out. There's enough thermal goop, the chip will probably still be fine. And we're going to see what this chip is, because I gotta know. Sneaky, sneaky, that bracket is soldered, but just in one spot. Right here. And because that little bracket's so small, my iron is powerful enough to lift that. So I got the screws out. We're almost to this mystery chip. Well, that wasn't near as hard as I was expecting it to be. Just heated it with a couple pumps of my solder sucker, and it was out. KIA 6210AH. Let's make our way over to the computer and see what that brings up. Okay, I don't like just filming the screen because it doesn't really give good results, but here it is. We have a date of 94. So early 90s is right. I read through this sheet and I don't understand how this works. Okay, so the unit has 4 speaker outputs. This is a dual channel chip, and there's only one chip in the unit, this one. But what also doesn't make sense is it's bridged. How is it bridged if our speakers share the same ground? You can't do that with a bridge amp because your outputs are inverted. That's how they can get a higher voltage swing on the output and you get more power from a limited supply voltage. And a 4 ohm load, we're running on 12 volts, so we're just getting about 15 watts. Around about 17. Odd numbers. But if we crank this thing up to 18, like I like to do with a lot of head units, we'll be busting around 30. So I just flipped it over and counted the pins. These 2 harnesses right here, green and blue, orange and red, these are the 2 speaker outputs, and they are connected in your BTL. And they go to this connector. Now, I'll just sit down and look, but the 4-pin connector is the only 4-pin. It's right here, and it goes to some wires on the harness block. They've got a... I don't get how it's in bridge, because speakers share grounds, and with a bridge load, you just can't do that. It's its own circuit with one single load. But I'm going to sit down and trace that board out and see if I can figure out how this thing is wired up, because maybe they're doing some trickery. So I traced out this board, and I don't understand it. So the connector for the speakers that comes right from the amplifier are 2 center pins run into the brown with stripe and white with stripe. Well, I believe those are both the common grounds for the speakers. Yep, white with stripe, brown with stripe. Our 2 outsides go to the middle pin on this big harness, which plugs into this, and it buggers off somewhere. I believe this harness goes underneath. Yeah, and it fishes all the way under. And it, oh. Now dog's barking. Might go to the fader control. It goes that little harness, which buggers off somewhere. I don't even see it. I'll have to, Yeah, I don't know how this works. I'm sure if I seen like a schematic, it'd probably make sense. But I don't get how they're getting speakers with a common ground, a 2-channel amp with 4 speakers in the plug. It goes out on those, buggers off, and then it comes back on those 2 on the edge, and then it runs to the wires on the plug that are the speaker positives. I could trace it out more, but I think I'm just going to put it back together. This is more just like a kill time, see if I get it working project. Oh well, that was fun. And there we go, all back together. And I don't have any screws left over. I'll re-solder the harness, which will be a piece of cake, heat shrink it, and then it'll be good to go for something. I'm sure I'll figure out a use for me. I can screw it under my desk and use it to play with the radio, I don't know. Well, this was a quick video, and it was all entirely handheld. I guess I'll see how bad it looks when I'm in editing. And there we go, there's the harness all fixed. Good as new.